This is 1020s, a podcast from 1020 Marketing. 10 episodes, 20 minutes each. Because meaningful marketing gets to the point.
Welcome, everybody, to 1020s. I'm Bev.
I'm Mark.
Oh, good. Today, our episode is all about the evolution of communication. But also, I wanted an excuse to interview my friend Eric, who I thought of because he has this music label, record label. He's had it forever. It's essentially a case study in how to evolve along with an ethos or, whatever the cultural climate of the time happens to be. A little bit more about Eric before we let him in. He's dabbled in many creative areas, though primarily it's the music space. Like that's always been the backdrop and possibly a catalyst and like an in for other things. But for everything he does, the thing that stands out to me the most is, and it's also something that I feel like so many brands are missing, is this sense of openness and curiosity and just basically what can I do next? Like it's
Awesome.
just this, yeah, it's awesome. So let's let him in and let's chat with Eric Warner. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thanks for having me today.
Our pleasure.
You can start it off if you like, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, why don't we start where we always start? Sort of a bit of a background introduction of yourself, your music label, We Are Busybodies, and how it all started.
Sure. So I'm Eric Warner. I'm the president of We Are Busybodies, which is a music company based in Toronto that has been in operation since 2005. Within the company, we have a record label, a management division, we do some booking, and we have a not-for-profit called the Cylinder Project, focused on music education. I got into everything that I do, I guess, by trial by fire. I was always interested in music, so at a young age I started writing a fanzine and awkwardly interviewing bands.
Mm-hmm.
From there I started putting on concerts, and that turned into many concerts and booking tours and running a festival, which I then parlayed into working for many different brands over the years, usually with the music marketing or music. I think that, my approach has always been have fun, to learn, to challenge myself, and, in tandem, played in a lot of bands. Usually like to see what I can get away with. Everything has always started as a joke, kind of backfired. And
how I describe you to people in general. Often I'm like, yeah, he just kind of wants to see what he can get away with. And then he does that thing. And I think probably more people should think that way. More brands should think that way anyway.
I don't disagree. If you don't try, you don't know. You learn what works or what doesn't work, and you apply, new learnings, and you try to improve upon it and get better and better. I like to, get weird with things and have fun, and it's kind of opened up most of my doors in my life. It's made it more interesting. Still stressful. Don't get me wrong, but I really like to kind of see what I can get away with.
Yeah, you're really good at pivoting, I would say.
A good example would be with We Are Busybodies. Like the label started because I played in bands and I was a concert promoter and helping out my friends. Like I always wanted to get them signed to labels or help out in whatever ways I could if I was a manager or whatever it may be. And I very bluntly thought, I'm going to see how far I can push it and, where I can take everything. And since then, my label has put out over 100 and I guess it's about 30 releases, which is pretty ridiculous if you're kind of factoring end of November 2019 when I kind of had this epiphany. And then I've also launched a whole bunch of other equally verbose sounding labels, because my label or company is called We Are Busybodies. I now have record label and Busy Buddies, a kids label.
Yes.
But I wanted to keep everything under an umbrella. And I also knew that, especially because some of this abutted the height of the pandemic, if I didn't pivot and make changes, in this case, I started focusing a lot on reissue releases or albums that came out a long time ago and may or may not have found their audience at the time.
Yeah,
it would be very challenging because artists couldn't tour, couldn't do certain things where they would monetize and typically sell releases. So it made me have to adjust how I approached my operations, including like focusing more on licensing music to film and television. And it allowed me to grow and quite consistently and to keep taking some of these weird risks. But it's me being excited by what I'm doing that will ideally help push everything forward and move things forward with the day-to-day operations of We Are Busybodies, which has opened up many other segments too.
Which bands are you working with, or which groups? Who do you rep?
So on the management side, I work with Rich Acoin, who was nominated this year and last year actually for Electronic Album of the Year at the Junos. I work with Limblifter, one of my favorite groups from the 90s, who I've reissued a lot of their releases and put out a few new ones. And then I've been developing a number of artists. I actually kind of pared down some of my management roster and booking roster in recent times simply because I need to keep my blinders on, and I do a lot of things in and out of music. I also am now a lecturer at Toronto Metropolitan University, so I wear a lot of hats, and I like that, and it's how I function. I like to think I'm relatively okay at compartmentalizing, but that's subjective, and maybe Bev will disagree on that. So I don't know.
A fun little interjection for Mark and people who don't know Eric is that Eric also has 3 children. Fun fact.
I do.
With 3 children and a dog, and just gardens a lot. And I just feel like you're always doing something. You're never not doing something.
I think I come by it naturally. Like I've got it. Even like my grandpa, who I've met, lived almost 103, was a very entrepreneurial. Did lots of different things. He was a guy who was in the fields with a pitchfork still at 101 digging up potatoes. He encouraged the creativity and I'll call it the weirdness, but I think it's also being comfortable with who you are in whatever you do, to be honest, like having a thick skin and not necessarily caring what other people think. But yeah, I juggle a few different things, and
just a few.
Maybe don't sleep as much as some, but it's just kind of part of it.
I love that you brought up Grandpa Anisman, because I wasn't going to, but I'm really glad you brought him up. Because Mark, we used to go to his farm. They had a big farm like just north of Toronto, and we used to go there every year. And
with potatoes.
There were potatoes, but he grew a lot of stuff, all kinds of stuff. He was so generous with like his produce, and we would get out there in the fields and dig with him.
It was fun with the digging.
He was so generous with his time and his space and his patience.
So why don't we move into some of the ideas that you've had to promote your bands? Bev was telling me about some of the pressings that you've had.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about
the more exciting.
So yeah, I mean, and that's probably a good segue into some of the other work I'm doing with the cylinder project. But I'm really interested in the evolution of sound recording and technology and the different mediums that have existed.
Yeah.
Not only because there's been an evolution as there's been advances in technology, but also its impact on society and how people learn and hear music or obtain information. Like I feel like I can show some of this because I have it at my desk. It's like show and tell. And again, there's a little bit of a glare here, but this is, if you can see it, and I'll send pictures after. This is
we'll stitch the photos in.
But like I've done records that are made on X-rays, records that are playable postcard records. I'm actually working on a series right now. It'll come out later this year, where it's a playable postcard, like you can get it in the mail, and it's a single song by an artist from each province and territory with illustrations done by an illustrator from each province or territory, and it's meant to show the diversity of music, but also of cultures. So I really, again, like to have fun with a lot of these formats. I've done records filled with Doritos, records filled with lemonade. Records filled with lemonade and wheat sheath. So I work with this ambient or instrumental artist named Michael Scott Dawson. So this is a record filled with Doritos. You can play it. I have also taken it one step further. I made an edible record once, but it wasn't actually like playable. It was that the record was a download code, and it was one of my old bands. And as part of your admission ticket to the concert, you were given a sandwich, vegetarian or meat.
I was at that. The sandwich release show. Yeah,
exactly. A mixed drink and a piece of fruit.
It's a very normal sentence to say.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And on I think it was on the wrapping of the sandwich, but also maybe the piece of fruit, there was like a download code.
Yeah.
And I made all the bread, smoked the meat, smoked the tofu.
I remember this very well.
Everything. And it was like at this subterranean bunker in Kensington Market, again here in Toronto. And it was a very fun show, save for the fact that I had laryngitis and I was the guy who sang in the band. So, just didn't talk for a week afterwards. But like things like this are a lot of fun to me in terms of like just playing around with formats. Like I've made cassettes, I've, done different things now, and pretty much if there's a will, there's a way. Like I've made liquid filled records that have like sparkles in them um, and I guess like again, as I said, the good segue is like I've been working on this music education project for the last 5 years called the Cylinder Project
Yes,
because
let's
I'm
talk about this
actually
now.
creating, and I have one behind me.
Mhm.
I'm making new cylinder records, and for anyone who is unfamiliar with this tube, this is a playable record that usually goes on an Edison gramophone or Victrola or um, something that doesn't actually have electricity coming
Mhm.
out of it. Like it's a hand cranked device, turn of the 20th century, with a large horn to project the actual music being played or coming out of the horn was a speaker, to be clear.
Mhm.
Um, Initially, the idea behind this project was like, hey, I can do something really weird and creative for my 100th release as a label. But then the idea kind of grew and manifested into what it is now. And that is this project, song by song, language by language, culture by culture, looks at and works with original sound recordings of languages and cultures that are unfortunately at risk of dying out or have already died out in terms of like there's very few native speakers. So under UNESCO's guidelines, it would be classified as extinct. The goal of the project is to look at some of the reasons why these languages went extinct. Was it population size? Like again, initially, like if it was an island population, in the case of Ainu, which is an indigenous native language of Japan, um, like it also is like based on the original population size, but also unfortunately no different to what occurred in Canada with indigenous
Mhm.
populations. They were made to adapt, and with that, their population shrunk and was absorbed into the larger Japanese population. And again, I don't think I'm doing full justice to accurately explaining everything to a T,
We'll link
um,
out to it.
but the idea behind it is to work with different musicians and academics and with that institutions to explore the different languages and cultures. Like for myself, if I go back 2 generations on my dad's side, everyone's an Orthodox rabbi. But for me, it's really interesting because we did a Yiddish cylinder in partnership with the University of Wisconsin and the Mayrent Institute, which is the largest repository of Yiddish music in North America, but
Nice.
also, interestingly, Hawaiian music. I bring in the people that actually can speak with the authentic voices and the knowledge base to properly speak to, again, cultural identity and why some of these things happen. And going back to that, it could be, migratory patterns based on finding opportunities. It could be, again, the impact of the English language and technology. Like there's so many different ways to
Yeah.
look at it. But it's like I don't know if I'll be putting out records in 15 years, but I hope this project continues to grow and into what it's become.
Mark, where are we for time? Do you have a timer going?
We have a handful of minutes. Yeah.
Okay, a handful
Also,
of
I
minutes. Cool,
talk a
cool,
lot.
cool.
Have you figured that out yet?
I already
Um,
knew this. I was hoping to steer the thing, but I should have known better. Should have known that it probably would have gone in all different directions, and I'm okay with that. That's part of what I enjoy about you.
Maybe it's the struggle to get your kids to eat their vegetables because they haven't found the right motivation. Introducing new Fruit Bottom Vegetable Top Yogurt from Astro. Try our new flavors like our intriguing broccoli strawberry.
It's Astro fruit at the bottom and vegetables at the top.
Will you talk about the exhibition that you are
yeah, yeah,
planning, the
yeah.
Cylinder Project, real quick?
So, yeah, totally. So there are 3 different formats right now to this project, the Cylinder Project. There is the lectures that I've been giving at universities and in academic kind of locations. There's workshops being developed right now that are going to be rolled out into different schools meeting Canadian curriculum standards, which is crazy in itself. And then the workshop I've been creating is more actually about the evolution of sound recording technology. So going back to like not only cylinders, but like acetate, shellac, 8-track, cassettes. It's meant to be very much an interactive experience that has tangible elements. So anything from like recording booths and live record cutting, live performances, discussions, and different things like that. It's really something that I'm actively starting to work on booking into museums and science centers and galleries in Europe and in the US.
Mhm.
And this is a long-term project for We Are Busybodies, but um, it's like I go to enough exhibits at this point with my kids, like could be a museum, could be a science center, and I'm trying to think about it from the perspective of my kids, even of if I was going to an exhibition, I want to learn something, ideally, even if you don't realize you're learning, but I want
Mhm.
to make sure it's fun and that there's actual interactive elements because I want people coming out of this being like, I didn't know this, and this was really cool, and like I got to do
Mhm.
this, and then, no different than anything else, people talk about it, it grows, and it affords me the ability to keep doing more and more of it in terms of booking more exhibitions and expanding the scale and scope. But I
Yeah.
have amassed a collection of random stuff going back, 120 plus years. It could be old radios, it could be kids' record players. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there. And my goal is to kind of condense and consolidate it into an exhibition that touches on the last 120 plus years and encourages people to be curious about, again, language and music and sound and technology.
I have a very important question for you, and that is, Eric Warner, what do you do to decompress when you are
I
not working? Like when you are not sleeping and when you are not working, what do you do to just kind of
I'm bad at
chill?
cooking enough,
I know.
but I love to cook. I grow lots of vegetables and fruits, like you kind of alluded to. So
Mhm.
I like to garden. I like to make pizzas in my pizza oven, and experiment with recipes and things like that. And then I like to record records. I've toured all over the place, and usually as a guy running around screaming at people in noisy rock bands. Now I write kids records that are more geared to, I guess, children in that, I mean, they're kids' records, but tolerable to parents, fun for kids. Or I get weirder and I write concept records that actually, yeah, I wrote this record with one of my friends where the idea is an adult son gifts his parents a songwriting lesson and recording session. They write about their lives growing up Jewish in Toronto, and we wrote a song about United Bakers, and we had a record release show at United Bakers, and we were the first artist or band or whatever you want to call this to have a show at United Bakers, and
Which is shocking to me, honestly.
it really was. But we also got
It's an institution in Toronto, Mark.
yeah,
United
I'm not
I've
sure if I
heard of
should
Bakers.
it.
be saying this,
Yeah.
but we
I
got
know of
some
it.
free pea soup at the end of it.
Oh my God,
So
you're very
like,
lucky.
pea soup is like currency there. So
It is,
um, yeah,
or
like
should be.
I still like writing records and occasionally playing concerts, but I just think it's a lot of fun and pretty intuitive. So and also nepotism. So I know how to put out my own records and do all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
man.
But yeah, this summer I'm recording a project where um, I'm recording the same lyrics to 6 songs with different friends, and we're going to record the music in multiple genres, and then try to release or get the albums put out by different labels, not my own, of the same lyrics, just different styles of music, and see kind of a little bit of a social experiment in terms of like, will anyone notice? Obviously, they're now going to learn about this because of this conversation, but I just kind of, again, like to see what I can do and what I can get away with. And that's kind
Yep.
of like what I like to do when I decompress, see what I can get away with.
Yes. Okay,
Well,
Eric
thanks for taking
Warner.
the time for us today, Eric. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Very
Yeah.
enlightening. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Okay,
And
I'll talk to
thank
you.
you. You will. Okay, great. Okay, cool. All right,
Okay,
see you later.
thank you.
Take
Bye.
Bye,
care.
friend. It's a lot to digest in there, but I think that was really enlightening and very different from like a lot of the interviews that we have done or will do. Like he's a very interesting human. And this idea that like it's really important to be open and curious. If you're a human or if you're a brand, that's how you innovate. That's how you like find your people and find your new people.
Well, that's a good tie-in to the topic at hand, right? About marketing. And I agree. I think it's
Yeah.
important to be curious and innovative and come up with ways to connect with people differently, right?
Yeah.
And he seems to have been able to do that. So that was great.
Yeah.
All right, Bev. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.